Good morning, and we'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the County of Haliburton is located on Treaty 20 Mishi-Saugig territory, and in the traditional territory, the Mishi-Saugig and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge the shared presence of Indigenous nations throughout the area and recognize its original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Just a note on the agenda, we will be adding one item under closed. That would be discussion on labor relations. So could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillors Carter and Fury.
Be it resolved that the February 28th, 2024 Haliburton County Council agenda be approved as amended.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any notice of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of February the 14th? Councillors Carter and McKechnie.
Be it resolved that the minutes of the February 14th, 2024 meeting at Haliburton County Council be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. There's no business arising from our previous meeting and no delegations today. So we will move on to corporate service reports. And Tanya Rosenberg will be presenting on behalf of Andrea Robinson today. Andrea's not well. Good morning.
Good morning, Warden and Council.
So we'll start with the payroll register.
The county had 2 pays in January with net direct deposits totaling $537,363.13.
Are there any questions on the payroll register? Could I have a mover and a seconder to approve it? Councillors Burton and Royale.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives for information the staff report on the payroll register for January 2024, and further the payroll register for January 2024 with net direct deposits totaling $537,363 be hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is the check register for January.
The January check register totaled $784,219.20.
Are there any questions on the check register? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive and approve it? Councillors Fury and McKechnie.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives for information staff report on check register for January 2024, and further the check register for January 2024 with checks, EFTs, and PAPs totaling $784,219 is hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Next up is your financial indicator.
The financial indicator report is provided annually by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to each municipality for information purposes based on our FIR data. Similar to previous years, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has shown one area of moderate level of risk on our report, our assessment consumption ratio. This indicates how much of the asset's life expectancy has been consumed. To receive a low risk rating, we must have less than a 50% ratio, and we currently have a 64.7% ratio. Council will see within the report that as we continue to invest in our assets, this ratio is slowly decreasing over the years. It is important to note for Council that these indicators should not be looked at in isolation, and that it is just one measurement tool that does not include the condition of the assets. All other areas within our report have been identified as low risk.
Are there any questions on the financial indicator? Could I have a mover to seconder to receive and approve it? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dayu, Councillor Royale.
Be it resolved that the Haliburton County Council receives for information the February 28th, 2024 staff report on the 2022 financial indicator review.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is your investment report.
All of the county's investments are with the Local Authority Services 1 investment, and are funds that are not immediately required for operating purposes. As you can see within the report, the county has a mixed portfolio of investments, including high interest savings account, money market, bond, and equity portfolios. Currently, the county has $6.9 million invested and has earned a total of $669,168.78 in investment income to date. Of that, $398,450.34 was earned in 2023.
Any questions on the investment report? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillor Dayu and Carter.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives for information the investment report as of December 31st, 2023, and further that the investment report is hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Finally is the council and committee remuneration report.
As per Section 284 of the Municipal Act, the treasurer is required to provide to council an itemized statement of remuneration and expenses paid in the previous year. The attachment to this report is intended to satisfy this requirement.
Are there any questions on the remuneration and expenses report? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive and approve it? Councillor Steary and McKechnie.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives for information the staff report on the 2023 council and committee member remuneration and expenses, and that the report on council and committee remuneration and expenses is hereby approved.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Tanya. Nothing under procurement or human resources. So next up is the information technology and geographic information system report. Morning, Mr. March.
Morning, Warden Danielson, members of council. Before you today is my standard monthly IT status report, giving council an update on the projects that are currently underway at the county. Over the last month, we finished up one of the big ones, which was the managed cybersecurity service that's now been fully rolled out and in place. The IT digital strategy is ticking along, and we're waiting for a final report back from the consultant in March. There's been a bit of delay, so it's been pushed from February into March now. And the records management is the other big project that IT is working on. That's fully underway, working with staff at the member municipalities to start rolling that system out. I don't think I have anything else to bring to council's attention at this point. And as always, I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions on the IT status report? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive and approve it? Councillors Fury and Carter.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives for information the February 28th, 2024 IT status report.
All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next up is economic development and tourism. I have a fairly substantial report from Mr. Rovell today. Morning.
Good morning, wardens and warden and members of council. Just before you today is one report with just two grant items to note. So tourism staff did apply to the Rural Economic Development Fund. The deadline was really tight and substantially tight for that. So it's really hard sometimes to turn these around and get them in front of council. Just wanted to note what we applied for. So after speaking with our RED advisor, they placed an emphasis or thought that we should place an emphasis on downtown revitalization and perhaps some wayfinding. We recognize that the wayfinding strategy is still being completed, but we identified that we could do some community maps in kind of each urban center within the county at locations of high traffic at low cost, and we could install those to keep that moving forward and still have those be able to be reused. The second item is new for us. We applied to get some funding to perhaps support, if we're approved, to support the implementation of some aspects of the community improvement plan approved for downtown Minden or the village of Minden. Within that, what we'd be looking at predominantly would be program or the program related to facade improvements or signage improvements for building owners. The goal with that is if we see some uptake and some success with that, at a later date, we'd be coming back to council. Perhaps we'd have some data and support to perhaps explore implementing a program of a similar scope in other areas within the county. So it is a bit of a pilot project. We've chatted with the CAO at Minden, and they were supportive of our approach for this. The second aspect is just an Ontario Trillium Foundation grant application that's currently being written by Algonquin Highlands staff for the rehabilitation or renovation of a terminal building at the airport. By no means is this us trying to say that we want to manage the project or overreach. It's really Trillium places a lot of emphasis in their grants on long-term community and economic development benefit. So by us being a co-applicant, it really just signifies to the organization that the county's supportive of what the program brings. And it's more than just an airport. It could be a community hub or an economic development hub. So as staff, all we'd be really doing is just reviewing the grant with Algonquin Highlands staff and providing our input where we can to help strengthen that application and help hopefully have it approved by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. There's no financial requirement of the county, and there's no requirement of us to sit in on the management of the county other than probably just touching base periodically with their staff, just seeing how it's going. And then we would be required probably to review the final report if the grant was successful and when it was completed.
Just to add to the airport application, it's primarily to improve the terminal buildings operations as a community hub, and also to make it accessible, because at the present time the washrooms are not accessible. So the county's support is much appreciated there. A question on the other grant. I'm just wondering how it was determined that it would be Minden in particular. When you looked at I mean, why Minden and not Haliburton, or why not downtown Wilberforce?
Fair question. It's a requirement of the RED grant to have an approved community improvement plan in place. So moving forward, as I said, if this pilot program gives us some data that there's a desire, we see a desire for it, the goal would be to expand and look at doing community improvement plans in the other urban centers. And again, with similar programs, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. And again, facade improvement, signage, there's even the Minden one does have a program related, I think, to if you renovate an apartment space above a building within your downtown core, there could be some support for that. So if we have success, hopefully maybe the next go around with the Rural Economic Development Fund, maybe we perhaps apply for some funding to get to some support to develop the program across the county. I know it would be early on. We'd probably have to look at some capacity support, whether that was just getting a consultant to help us with a few of the things, maybe on the design elements, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So it's really, it's more of a requirement of the province than us trying to cherry pick one community over the other.
Questions on the economic development report? Councilor Rael?
Just say, Scott, I know that they don't give you much lead time. If you get 6 weeks, you just hit a home run. My question is it possible, or do we already have potential projects in queue that could be that are in the process of being looked at as potential candidates in the next round of whatever comes up in grants? And I don't need to know them today. I'm just wondering if that's a strategy that we're using, and if so, if we're not, then why not?
Through you, Warden, absolutely. We have projects both in the economic development strategy and the destination management plan. How I approach it is if it's a tight timeline, if we're not requesting any new money from council. So if it's just we're going to utilize our contribution as in what's already been approved in the budget, we generally will just move ahead with it and then update council. However, if we were applying to a program, regardless of how tight the deadline is, if it required new money or a funding request from council, we would obviously come to this group first and foremost before proceeding, but we have a lot in the queue, and it's really just being able to jump on them and keep an eye on them and turning them around. And I will say we're really grateful for our partners at HCDC and the Chamber of Commerce that between three organizations, we've got our eyes out, and it helps us write them and helps, gives us an extra set of eyes on what we're putting forward as well. So.
Any other questions on the report? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive and approve or support the applications? Councillors Dayu and Ryall.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council received the February 28th, 2024 Rural Economic Development Fund application and Ontario Trillium Fund and Grant Report for information, and further that Haliburton County Council authorized staff to support the Township of Algonquin Highlands application to the Ontario Trillium Foundation as co-applicant.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Scott. Okay, next on the agenda are EMS response times report. Good morning, Chief Wade.
Good morning, Warden, members of council. So I just bring to your attention our response times for 2023. These response times targets are based on what we submitted to the ministry in October of 2022. So we have to report on our response times for 2023 by March 31st of 2024. And as you can see in my report, we successfully met all of our response times for 2023. Any questions?
Any questions on the response time report? Could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it? Councillors Fury and Carter.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives the report EMS 01-2024 for Haliburton County Paramedic Services 2023 response time for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, sir. Wow, we're just tearing right through our agenda. Next are reports and minutes from external boards and agencies. Starting with the Haliburton Kawartha Pine Ridge Health Units, Councillor Rail.
Yeah, today, there's a few things that were done, but the major event that's happening is the merger between the HKPR and Peterborough Health Unit. There'll be more information coming out this afternoon and literally, but what has basically happened is both groups have got together, and we're going to pursue moving forward with the application to merge. And that application is going to include only the HKPR and Peterborough. There is some challenges there in the sense that the two together only add up to roughly 300,000 people. The province is looking for closer to 500,000. But having said that, when we went through the information with a consultant, there's a lot of things that would influence the province to just accept the fact that it makes good sense for these two units to get together in light of some of the other things that they're doing. So the benefits kind of outweighed the negatives as far as we could see. The biggest challenge is the extremely rough estimate of about $3.5 million to pull this off, and taking approximately 2 to 3 years for full implementation. To make that a little clearer, the plan now is to put together a business case study that would more clearly identify the benefits coming from this and identify also the negatives that could come from it. Put a much better handle on the price tag as to what that price tag is, what it's made up of. It's not just cash, it could be a bunch of different things. And a more, not detailed, but more informative timeline as to what can be done over what period of time. We have things to deal with like unions, like logistics, like IT, and a bunch of other things. They all have to be kind of done at the same time. So the target for that to be submitted is the end of March. We're trying to get everything together for the end of March, which is good for us. The province has basically indicated that there's a possibility that we will not have our application approved or otherwise looked at until the end of August or the early September, which is kind of sort of the timeline they're giving everybody. So at this point in time, we have another meeting scheduled for March the 5th to go into detail more so about what we're going to put into the business case study and trying to meet that deadline of the end of March. I think April 2nd is the actual official date. And so that's as much as I have now. Hopefully the next meeting, I'll be able to give you more information. I can take any questions if you want any.
Any questions for Councillor Rail? Thank you, sir. And there are the minutes there from January the 24th. Any questions or comments on those? Hearing none, next is point in time. Councillor Dayu.
Thank you. The organization continues to go from strength to strength. Accreditation is on schedule, so that's really good news for our community because that's an important piece in the puzzle of providing these services. The interesting thing that I've found over the last number of months and that sitting on the board is that every month a staff member comes to the board meeting and gives a presentation on their department, what they do, the services they provide, and the sorts of lessons that they're learning, which is really valuable for board members to have a stronger appreciation of the operations of of the group. There will be more news in the upcoming minutes. I'm going to really try to stick to the minutes as they're presented, and there's some good stuff coming up in future meetings to announce.
Well, that sounds exciting. Any questions for Councillor Dayu on point in time? Hearing none, next is the Warden's Caucus. And there hasn't been a meeting since our last meeting here. We will be meeting on the 21st and 22nd of March. I'm only going to be able to attend the 22nd, but we will be doing a strategic plan for the Warden's Caucus, which I'm really quite looking forward to. So I will keep you posted after we've gotten through that as to where they landed. Next is the JAC committee.
Yes,
Councillor Carter.
we had a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and minutes will be forthcoming. It was a very fruitful and meeting. We discussed a number of different things, mostly around the fact that this committee has, there's giant overlaps with all sorts of other groups, whether it be point in time, whether it be the community safety and well-being plan, the intersection with the OPP, because we have a number of issues with the OPP, particularly in the housing side of things. We talked about some of the issues that we had, and the fact that some of the problems we want to work on, what happens is if you work on one problem and solve it, it generally just moves it around the table to the next department. And but unfortunately, sometimes that's the approach you have to take, because if you don't move it over into the next area, they won't, they're not going to do anything about it. We have some general problems in this area, mostly related to poverty. We on our own are not going to solve poverty. So we have to be working around the edges on things like homelessness. And then homelessness obviously sometimes relates to other issues in the social services area, and whether it be drugs or mental illness or so on. So I think everybody was really engaged, and we are trying to plan kind of a what's next, and how do we try to bring all of this together, particularly in light of the moving forward of community safety and well-being, because child services, social services, housing all fit under that umbrella. And so, knowing how we all work together and not duplicate efforts is going to be an important thing going forward.
Any questions for Councillor Carter? Okay, next is the library board, and as Councillor Shell is not here, I wonder if Councillor Dayu would like to comment.
Yeah, happy to. So the board struck a subcommittee to look at the library board budget for the upcoming term, and that subcommittee has met and has made some very good recommendations on where we might find some efficiencies. That has not been passed yet by the library board to take back to this table, but that is going to be happening in the next few days before our March 6th meeting. So we can look forward to some good information from library board at that time.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Dayu? Could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the reports and minutes from external boards and agencies? Councillors Fury and Burton.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council receives from information the following: December 7th, 2023, January 18th, and February 5th, 2024, approved minutes for the HKPR Board of Health meetings. The January HKPR Board of Health summary report, the November 28th, 23 point in time approved board minutes, and the January 10th and January 25th, 2024 approved minutes from the Haliburton County Public Library Board.
All in favor? That's carried. Nothing from the Land Division Committee. Other external boards and agencies. Any update or information on CPAC, Councillor Burton?
Thank you, Warden. I don't have any update other than I know that the station commander or the detachment commander is working pretty hard to try to organize a meeting. And I'm hoping at the latest it's going to be mid-March, but all of a sudden here we are into March, but I'm hoping it'll be mid-March.
Okay, thank you. Nothing, no update at this point in time from EORN. Councillor Fury, anything on poverty reduction roundtable?
The minutes are there for everyone to read, and there was a lengthy presentation from Sue Shikazi on climate change.
Any questions for Councillor Fury? Hearing none, we will now proceed into closed session. Could I have a mover and a seconder to move into closed? Councillor Royale and Dayu.
Be it resolved that Haliburton County Council enter into closed session for the following reasons: personal matters about identifying individual, including municipal or local board employees, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instructions to be applied to any negotiations carried on behalf of the municipality, and labor relations or employee negotiations.
All in favor? That's carried. Welcome back to the open session. Are there any notice of motions? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to confirm the proceedings of council today? Councillors Carter and Fury.
Be it resolved that bylaw 4230 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the February 28th, 2024 meeting of Haliburton County Council be considered to be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
All in favor? That's carried. And finally, could I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor McKechnie. Councillor Carter.
Be it resolved that the February 28th, 2024 meeting of Haliburton County Council be adjourned at 11:05.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.